At Glacier National Park, hikers had to scramble off the trail because a grizzly bear was chasing a couple of mountain goats. Now, grizzlies will sometimes try to eat a mountain goat. Why not? But it doesn't mean that the mountain goat has to go along with that plan. In fact, in Canada a few years ago, they found a dead grizzly and realized, forensically that a mountain goat had fought back against it and punctured its lung and killed it. So not always the grizzly winner. Satellite communications on watches are finally here across the board. First, Google announced the satellite SOS on its new Pixel Watch 4. Then Garmin released the Garmin Fenix 8 Pro, which not only has satellite SOS, but also has satellite messaging. Then to complete the trifecta, of course, Apple announced satellite SOS and messaging on its new Apple Watch Ultra 3. Now, the important thing to know about all of these is that you have to point the watch at a certain spot in the sky in order for it to work. You can't just leave it on like you can with a normal Garmin inReach and have it send, even on the Garmin watch, the Garmin version. Now, SOS on the Google Pixel Watch is free. On the Garmin, you have to pay for messaging and all the satellite functionality, including SOS. And on the Apple Watch, messaging and SOS are free for 2 years. And if you have an iPhone 14 or 15, Apple announced they are extending free satellite service for another year. So you should have free satellite on those phones until later in 2026. I did pick up the Garmin Fenix 8 Pro, and I'm getting the Apple Watch Ultra 3 on Friday, and I will be testing them and making a video shortly. Now, one of the features on the Garmin Fenix Pro is a micro-LED screen. That option costs a whopping $2,000. I did not buy that watch, but I did buy the AMOLED version that has all the satellite connectivity, and I'll be focusing on testing that stuff. Now, Garmin also introduced a new inReach handheld called the GPSMAP H1. I just got mine delivered today. We'll be testing it out shortly, comparing it to the 67i. It's also not cheap. It's $1,000 for the inReach version. Some other quick Garmin items. I've been watching Garmin's firmware updates, and from what I can tell, new features that are coming out in new watches are only landing on the newish watches like the Fenix 8 Enduro 3 and up. Earlier models like the Epix Pro are not seeing things like this, like the evening report, and I think that's because Garmin rewrote the operating system with the Fenix 8 and Enduro 3. That was all the bugs that we had earlier, and I've talked about over the last year or so. Another footnote, I saw that Garmin quietly dropped custom map support for watches older than the Fenix 8 or Enduro 3. They used to have this. You could load custom maps onto your watches like the Epix and see nice, topographic quads on the nice AMOLED color screen, but that is not a thing anymore. Garmin also updated their terms of use for inReach. The bulk of these changes were to address the new plans that they announced a few months ago, and also the inclusion of LTE with the Garmin Fenix Pro. But some other interesting things that I saw, Garmin can cancel your account if you use your Garmin inReach for commercial purposes. I guess they want you to buy the professional plan if you do that. And also, if you have the unlimited plan and you send more than 1,000 messages or the data equivalent in a billing cycle, Garmin can then throttle your send speed. So nothing too crazy here. I think for the way most of us probably use our Garmin inReach, but if you do have an unlimited plan, little bit of a heads up. Now, if you're a technical person and you'd like to liberate your Garmin data from Garmin Connect, somebody wrote a tool to do that, and you can see it on GitHub. I have not used it, but it looks interesting. It looks helpful. I did try to export all of my Garmin data once, which worked well. I got the export, but it wasn't really in a form that I could use it in a meaningful way. But with this tool here, if you're interested, you can have full control over your data and take it out of Garmin Connect, and you don't have to pay for a service like Garmin Connect Plus, where you get those enhanced reports. Speaking of Garmin Connect Plus, for the AI, I've not seen any improvement in Garmin Connect's AI there, any kind of meaningful insights. I did see a third-party tool where you can hook your Garmin data up to it along with some other sources and then ask questions about the data. And I think this is great. I think this is what Garmin should have done with AI and probably what they, what we were expecting. But I'll put a link to this underneath the video if you want to check it out. I've not checked it out myself. Now, this is not for hiking, but I thought it was interesting. Garmin introduced a fitness monitor for horses called Blaze. I thought that was a really interesting and smart idea. I saw that Trailforks has introduced an Apple Watch app that has maps on board. I have not used Trailforks in many, many years. I think it's mainly for mountain bike folks, but if you do use it for hiking, let me know in the comments. Maybe I'll do a test on this. I think it's interesting because Trailforks was one of the apps that was acquired by Outside, just like Gaia GPS was. I found it was interesting that they updated the Apple Watch app, but not the Gaia GPS app, or made a Gaia GPS watch app. Not sure why. Maybe more people are on Trailforks, but I'll keep my eye on that space. AllTrails announced a new CEO. I'm not sure what that all means, but I do know there's been like a lot of unhappy AllTrails users, a lot of nags for peak upgrades, especially on Reddit. You see this all the time. Overall, I think they probably could have handled the updates better, the pricing better. I've held off on doing a guide because I just want to see how this all shakes out. Maybe they'll move some things around or improve some things. I will do tutorials on AllTrails, but that's why I've been holding off on this. But overall, I think they probably could have handled everything with the new features a little more smoothly. CalTopo announced a offline mode for mobile. I think this is great because I have had problems with offline maps on CalTopo not loading. I don't know if it's because I'm in a low signal zone, but now you can explicitly say, use this offline just like you would with an airplane mode and, get your maps or use the downloaded maps. CalTopo is a pretty affordable option. I think it's $20 for the version that gives you offline maps on mobile. If you want to check it out, might be worth your time. There's also a newish app called Feather. I see the developer has been posting on Reddit quite a bit. It looks like you can do things like track your hikes, create a route, even track your gear. There's a free and paid version and an offline maps with the paid version. If you want me to check this out, let me know in the comments as well. I saw this new bear canister making the rounds on all of the influencer channels, the backpacking channels, called the Grub Can. I love the idea here. It's like a combination lock to open the top. I can't tell you how many times I've been cold or hungry or tired at the end of the day trying to open my bear can and my fingers just can't do it. And I love that on their website, they're even going to rent these out daily. I've been doing a lot more backpacking. I will definitely check out one of these grub cans in the future because I think it's a great idea. Clean Trek, the trash picker-upper device that attaches to your trekking poles, just went live on Kickstarter. So if you want to get one of these or be the first to get one of these and help out the guy who started it, John, get this off the ground, go check it out. He's a local hiker who just wanted to make it easier for us to pick up trash from the trails. I did a video about this earlier as well, but that Kickstarter is live. I just did a video on Starlink data. It's interesting. You can now download maps over CalTopo, over satellite data on unmodified cell phones, which I think is a great thing. I think it's probably the future of where satellite connectivity in the backcountry is going to be going. SpaceX, which powers the Starlink DTC, also just bought some of the satellite spectrum from EchoStar, which should help out on the direct-to-cell front. And I also saw that Skylo, which powers satellite messaging for Verizon satellites and also some other devices, just introduced a way for developers to do voice calls over their network. I'd expect to see some voice calls over satellite from cell phones in the near future. It's already been demonstrated as a proof of concept, I think a couple of years ago now, by players in the space, but no one's actually introduced it for consumers. But I like to see that Skylo has made it easier for developers and manufacturers to actually implement it. The Outdoor Industry Association released a report saying that outdoor activity hit an all-time high. A record 58.6% of Americans participated in outdoor activities, with hiking being the most popular. There were increases in participation from seniors, youth, and also from Black and Hispanic Americans. Seems like the outdoors is still going strong. I saw that Yosemite just reported visitation was up in 2025 compared to 2024. I also saw an article in Politico that said that employees at Yosemite are struggling to make the experience positive for visitors because they are overworked. It also said that search and rescues are up by 40% in the first half of this year compared to last year, and that Yosemite, Sequoia, and Kings Canyon park workers voted to become unionized. And believe it or not, there's a proposal to create a new national park in Florida out of Ocala National Forest. If we can get it, I'll definitely take it. Quick update at the Grand Canyon North Rim. A report came out outlining the damage to buildings. There were 106 buildings destroyed as part of the Dragon Bravo fire. Also, hazardous material sites were found there. Hopefully it doesn't wash down into the canyon over the winter. I'll keep you posted as new developments happen. The big political debate in the outdoor world right now is the proposal to rescind the roadless rule. There's a lot of information out there. I found a good article from the University of Wyoming College of Law that presents both sides of the argument, I think, pretty fairly. I'll put a link to that underneath the video in case you're interested in checking it out. All right, let's talk about staying safe in the outdoors. There's been a long list of fatalities, accidents, animal attacks this summer. Crazy stuff. A hiker was attacked by an alligator in Florida and the Alps. Somebody was trampled by cows. There's all kinds of things going on. I was even interviewed by ABC News about all of this. I did find something promising. This was in Italy. Searchers used an AI analysis of drone footage to find the remains of a missing hiker. Obviously, this was far after the fact, but you could see how something like this could potentially be used in real time in the future to find a hiker in the outdoors who's missing. Basically, I think the drones or the AI looked at the drone footage to find different color pixels that weren't part of a natural landscape to identify where the hiker was. Really, really cool. And of course, regardless of search and rescue, you always have to prepare for an emergency. I saw this Facebook post from my local search and rescue team. A hiker was having trouble continuing and decided to stay overnight. It was great that they were prepared to stay overnight. That's really smart. But what could have been better is if they had a satellite messaging device, they could have told their loved ones that they were going to stay overnight. Instead, it looks like a search and rescue effort was triggered because nobody knew that the person was staying out there. Now, even if you have the right gear, you want to have some redundancy. Last month, I mentioned a hiker who was missing in Norway for a week and was rescued. I saw a little post-mortem with them, and it turns out they lost a lot of their gear when they initially fell, which caused them to be missing for a while. That's why I think having some of these new watches with satellite connectivity on your wrist, it will be a great backup, some great redundancy in case something like that happens and you lose your pack, you lose your inReach. At least you'll have some SOS capabilities on your wrist. There was an article in Outside magazine challenging the effectiveness of the traditional lightning position. That's where you crouch down with your chest against your knees on the ball of your feet, I think, and sit on top of a sleeping pad. Now they're saying the best thing to do is just to find the lowest possible area, run if you have to, and get underneath uniform tree cover if you can. Saw this, don't go on closed trails. We all know this. This is from our local search and rescue here. Somebody went on a closed trail, fell 40 feet down the waterfall, and then had to be rescued. This is common sense. Whenever I see something like this, I always think of the immortal words of the late, great Red Fox. You big dummy. In New York State, they want to add more official trails to some of the named peaks in the Catskills because people are bushwhacking up to them in their effort to do peak bagging. I think it's a smart move to build more trails there. I also saw a group of hikers, mainly retirees in Tennessee, built a whole trail systems in their local community so that they could enjoy those trails in that wilderness area. I'll put a link to that website if you want to go check it out or support them in their trail building efforts. Here in Southern California, something opened. Angeles Crest Highway, one of the most beautiful highways and spectacular highways through any national forest that I've ever seen, finally opened after a few years between Red Box and Vincent Gap. You can now drive the whole length of it and access the trails that were previously closed because the road was closed. Some quick housekeeping. I just passed my 10-year anniversary here on YouTube. I've been going longer on the web, but on YouTube that happened. And I also mentioned in my last news video that I wasn't going to be notifying everyone when I pushed a trail guide live. I heard from a lot of you that you did not like that idea, and I did a poll here on YouTube to see what you guys would like to see, and overwhelmingly, you said, let me know when there's a new trail guide up. Now, the problem is that if you don't care about the trail guide and you unsubscribe, you probably won't see videos from me in the future. So what I would say is I will be publicizing those trail guides, and if you don't want to watch it, just don't watch it. But if you unsubscribe, you probably won't see my gear reviews and stuff. YouTube won't recommend things if you say you're not interested in my channel anymore. So just a heads up there. And if you are in Southern California, the Climb for Heroes event is happening on Mount Baldy on November 8th. You can go to the website and register now. The proceeds go to help support wounded veterans and specifically their journey in the outdoors. And if you're wondering what it's all about, a friend of the show, John Robertson, reached out to me and was kind enough to do a quick interview about his experience doing this event and why it's so important to him.
So my name's John Robertson, and I am an outdoor enthusiast, an amateur outdoor enthusiast. So I love hiking, go out every chance that I can get. 4 years ago, I was climbing Mount Baden-Powell, hiking it with a friend of mine. Saw a guy with a hat on that said Heroes Project. Asked him about the hat, as so often happens, strike up a conversation. He told me about the Climb for Heroes, and it made such a mark on me that I remembered it, wrote it down, and then when I got home, looked it up. And so the Climb for Heroes is a yearly climb that happens on Mount Baldy and around Mount Baldy every year right around Veterans Day. And it's through an organization called the Heroes Project. And so this organization is just really amazing, does great work in the community with injured veterans, also just injured community members. And they use the outdoors, hiking, mountain climbing, many other things as a way to help and in many cases rehabilitate injured veterans and others as well, which really is just gets at the core of what I believe is what's good about being outdoors. Even for me, I'm not injured, but I go outside and it helps me, it heals me, and it gives me a good perspective. So they do that with the group within our community that's really useful. And kind of the flagship fundraising opportunity that they have every year is the Climb for Heroes, which is coming up now. And so what it typically is a hike on or around Mount Baldy. And the top is always the goal. And the organizers are good at keeping people safe and getting everyone up there as high as we can. The community gets together, and it's a non-competitive, it's not a race, but it's a hike up to the top. And so many people come from the community, and also many people, by the way, from the military community, many people who are veterans, many people who are these injured veterans who benefit so much from it. And it's a time to all come together and, number one, just have a really fun day. It is probably my favorite day of the year. No exaggeration. We just get there and there's music and there's breakfast in the morning and there's coffee and you're there before the sun rises. And for me, generally, I always try to get a team going. And so if anybody wants to be on my team, let me know. We're called Failure is Not an Option because we were started by a bunch of aerospace engineers. So failure is not an option. We try to get to the top, but we're all there together. And we get to the top. There's always a flyover from the Condor Squadron. Typically, there is the planes that fly over, and if I could just say why it's so much fun. So number one, I might go for a lot of hikes. It's rare for me to go on a hike with that many people who are there for a common purpose. Typically, it might be me, 1, 2, maybe 3 friends. To be there with hundreds of people with a unified purpose, there's joy in that. But one other thing, and probably on an even deeper level, because there's a lot of organized hikes around here. I never served in the military. I knew many, many people who did. I'm what I would just call a thankful civilian. But I do have a debt of gratitude toward people who did serve, and especially those who served and came back with injuries of many kinds. And so this is just one way, especially on or around Veterans Day, where we can take part in giving back in building that community, because a big part of it is community. And then not only that, but the Heroes Project, they're also building an actual physical building, a retreat center for veterans. So when we participate in the Climb for Heroes, it actually directly goes toward building that retreat center so that other veterans who maybe aren't locals, who come from around the country, can come have a place to stay and kind of use our beloved Mount Baldy as a training grounds and a place where they can train, where they can rehabilitate, where they can come and just have that place to stay. So that's also a really nice addition that's come. But it's just a fun day. It's a blast. And if anyone's considering going, I encourage them to go. If they want to join a team, join my team. There's dozens and dozens others. I'm not the only one. And it's a really fun time.